Hello and welcome to another episode of the Opportunity Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Elfring, the head of marketing over here at Empire Flippers. And today I am talking to Philipp Schoeffmann. Totally mispronounced his last name, but Philip and we have been friends for a while. Him and I actually met at Affiliate World. So Phil, he is pretty much always the MC at all the different Affiliate World events around the world. So I've gotten to hang out with Phil in Bangkok, in Dubai, Barcelona, you name it. Really, really cool dude. He is like, when I think of the old adage of like, oh, that internet marketer is a rock star, like if you've been around in the industry for a while, that terminology used to get thrown around a lot. Like Phil definitely like fits the bill. Like he dresses like a rock star, super charismatic, very fun dude, and incredibly intelligent when it comes to performance marketing, when it comes to UGC. So Phil, he does a lot of organic marketing nowadays along with paid media. And when it comes to paid media, there's very few people I know who have run such huge budgets. Like he mentions in the podcast, one of the e-commerce stores he advised on going from, I think it was 70 million to like 140 million, something like that in terms of their evaluation. So wild stuff, wild guy, incredibly intelligent. But like I said, he comes from a bit of a different section of the marketing world than I do, where I'm a content marketer when it comes to mostly SEO and I'm lightly on other platforms. He is really a content marketer when it comes to social media, which is something I've never really done much with. I am going to be experimenting with Phil's service. I think it's called We Are Reels. It'll be linked down below. And we talk a little bit about Phil's background, how he became the MC at Affiliate World, and just marketing in general. I think him and I pretty much agree on everything when it comes to people getting too lost in the tactics and not focusing on the principles a lot. So we talk a lot about the principles, what makes a good offer, what is creating value, all that good stuff. So this is a really cool episode. If you want to get into the social media game and start producing your own shorts, reels, TikToks that actually drives sales and creates real influence, then this is a very good podcast for you. And by influence, Phil even mentions this, we don't mean like becoming some like famous YouTuber, Mr. Beast style. We mean becoming an influence in your niche where you don't need millions and millions of followers to have a seven-figure business. In fact, you can do it with just a few thousand technically, depending on what you're doing and what you're selling. So that said, let's get into it. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did with my buddy Phil, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, I got Philip here with me, Philipp Schoeffmann. I'm happy to have you on here, man. You and I have been friends for a few years at this point,
Are we
and
friends?
well, like on Facebook.
Ah,
We're officially Facebook
man, you're
friends, which
shocking
is
me.
like,
That was a shocking start, bro.
all right, we're going to restart this podcast over here. You're destroying my self esteem. Now people will think we were not good friends.
Oh, sorry. No, we're actually no. I'm not gonna go down this route. We're friends.
It's okay, Phil. I have the technology now to deep fake you to just say that you and I have been friends for like 50 years at this point. So it's all good. But no,
It's an interesting time we're living in. But sorry, I was interrupting you. I apologize. In general, I'm rude, so that should be part of your introduction.
we'll keep that in. Don't you worry, my friend. But yeah, man, I am really happy to have you on here. I think I've told you before that like you and I have been friends for a while, and I don't know a ton about your background. So I'm very curious, as well as I'm sure my audience is. For people that don't know you, you speak in front of hundreds and hundreds of people every year at all the different affiliate world events. You're the MC. Like I've been on those stage. You helped me, settle my nerves before I go on there, even when I was having crippling back pain in Barcelona. So yeah, man, for my audience out there that isn't familiar with you, why don't you tell us who you are and a bit of your background?
Sure, yeah. I'll try to keep it brief. I've been building businesses online for over 20 years now. And we know each other, as you mentioned, because I like to speak on stage every once in a while. And I'm hosting the main stage at Affiliate World. So I've become a bit of a face of the show, or at least the main stage, and built quite a network because of doing that. Met amazing people like you. But that is really just one snippet of what I do. I've really been an entrepreneur for 2 decades now, mostly building business online. I've done social impact ventures that actually was 8 years of my time. I worked for impact in sustainable development, and actually crazy. I I received like a lifetime achievement award at 27. So that was pretty cool. But then moved to the dark side of selling shit online. Well, come on. Gotta pay the bills sometimes, right? So but yeah, I have that for impact and do good kind of thing in me, and quite spiritual in my own way, I guess. But also, I do sell a lot of stuff online. I've built 3 different agencies, a growth hacking agency and 2 paid social agencies where we spend millions and millions on mostly Meta, so Facebook and Instagram ads for ourselves and for clients. I've built my own companies like startups. We actually had one of the fastest growing startups in the German speaking world for like 2 years until it crashed. It was a big mess. 2 years of trying to crawl back into life and the business success I was seeking. And yeah, went really well from there. So a couple more agency gigs, and now I mostly do advisory. I did a bit of coaching, right? Help an ecom biz go from 70 million to 130 million in revenue within a year. Obviously, hundreds of people. I was just playing an advisory role there, but that was cool. And yeah, now basically running two companies. Both are quite new. One is focusing on content, right? So producing UGC ads, but also running content organically, mostly as reels, so short form video. That's one gig. And the other one is that we're starting a yacht charter company. So big ass boats, like 50 meters and bigger. So that's a lot of fun. Always looks great on Instagram, right? So that's a little bit of what I'm doing.
Doing
But
it
yeah,
for the gram. I like it, man. You have quite a diverse past, man. So, like, before the affiliate world events, would you say your agencies, like, I'm assuming you were doing agency before you started speaking at affiliate world, were those
yeah.
like performance agencies, like kind of like an affiliate play, or kind of how did you get involved into the whole affiliate world industry?
Yeah, it was really in the beginning. I was just a participant, like at the very first event, right? There was one show in Bangkok actually, and there was a meetup in London. I believe after the first show actually, and I attended the London meetup and got to hang with a couple cool people, and was like, oh, I like those guys. They're really weird. So yeah, it's a lot of fun speaking with these people and nerding out about like online performance and like building businesses online. And so yeah, I attended the next show, and then I actually got to speak with the founders and we became friends. And I started actually interviewing the keynote speakers because I think I didn't know that this was weird, but I'm kind of an extrovert. So, like, I have both sides. I like the number crunching and like the working behind my computer and doing that for days and not seeing anybody. But then also, I really enjoy speaking and connecting with people. And especially affiliates are very often not that extroverted. They don't actually have such an extroverted side, or they prefer to do other stuff, right? Have other qualities. And I like that. So I was asked to actually interview the keynote speakers and like hang out with them. And I was like, oh, that's cool, right? Let's hang out with the Ryan Dices and the Neil Patels and stuff. And then I got to interview people like Gary Vaynerchuk and others. And I love that. And then I said, hey, give me the main stage. And they were like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And that's how things are happening. But it was like a 7 year journey, right? So
That's cool, man. I will say, of all the conferences I've been to, it's the SEOs and the affiliate marketers I tend to enjoy the most. With kind of like what you said, they're like a little bit socially, like I guess, off in a way, but in a cool way. Like they're all interesting, like much more interesting people than most other people I meet, like at a B2B SaaS
oh yeah.
conference or something like that. They're just intriguing people off the beaten path, so to speak. Speaking of Neil Patel, I actually also got to speak with Neil Patel about a year ago. I had a 45-minute conversation with him about polar bears. So you know me, and you, an audience
Sounds
may
about
not
right.
realize this, but for you, you're like, yeah, yeah, that seems like a normal conversation with Greg.
Oh, totally, totally. I will not tell you what I talked with Neil about. Let's not. Polar bears is what it is.
That's cool, man. So you had this marketing agency, you've run all these different businesses, you've now speaking at affiliate world. I mean, in terms of someone that has had a lot of experience in this rapid ecosystem that's changing constantly in the marketing world, I mean, you kind of have this really great view, oversight of it all. So in the last 20 years, how has marketing changed and how has it stayed the same?
I think the hard things have basically stayed the same, but a lot of the like not so hard things have become a lot easier. So let me try to explain that. Obviously, it's not as tacky anymore, right? So pretty much everybody can go online and find a way to market themselves. And I guess we're going to dive a little bit into that, and especially how video gets into that and so forth.
Mhm.
But the tech side of things was always a challenge for me. I'm not a tech guy. I spent 11 years at business schools and never touched anything technical, right? So that was very challenging to me. Nowadays, it's so much easier. You just plug things together, right? And if you do it the right way and you have a couple good tutorials or spend too much time on YouTube, you'll figure it out, right? That's cool. What basically stayed the same are the principles behind marketing. And what got a bit harder there is that it got easy to overlook what really matters, right? So a lot of people jump into marketing and they follow like the latest trend, right? The shiny object and all these things. They're looking for gold nuggets or the latest strategies or the best tools. And all of that has a place in marketing, but only as like a second or third layer. First, you have to understand the principles and understand what really matters, what's important, right? And go after that with some longevity, right? Some good strategy, right? And then all of that becomes a thing. I see people nowadays, and that has always been the case, but more and more nowadays, I see people getting lucky in a way, right? So they choose the right kind of nuggets, right? Or fast track strategies. They get lucky, they make some money, they find some fame, whatever they're after, right? But usually it's one of those two, right? Love in essence. But let's get into the philosophy of things and what actually drives people maybe a bit later. On the surface, it's money, right? It's status for men at least. For women, might be other things, right? More about beauty and so forth. But then again, it's also just status. And what is status? It's a sign of being loved, or at least a proxy for the ability of receiving love. Anyways, so what happens is that people follow down those strategies, and sometimes they just hit the jackpot, they get lucky. The problem with that is that if they don't understand what they have actually been doing and understand what is the foundation of that all, it's very hard to replicate. So maybe they just got so lucky that they're done for life. But in most cases, it was not such a big success. So they're trying to replicate it, and it becomes very frustrating to find that success again and get it to the next level if you haven't figured out the basic foundational things that have been the same forever.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think people get so obsessed with the tactics, they lose sight of the strategy. At even deeper level, like the value, which in my view, like whenever someone was talking about, oh, you need to create value, I feel like, okay, great. Well, what is that? And they never describe what that is, like, well, buy my boot camp and you're gonna learn, right? Well, maybe.
Of course.
But
It's only
in my
$10,000
view,
for 2 hours.
yeah, exactly. Right. In my view, creating value is just comes down to having a great offer. Like it could be something really simple, buy one, get one free, right? Like at a furniture store. It doesn't have to be complex, but I view like the most core part of marketing really comes down to the offer. Would you agree with that?
I do. There's a couple of basic things that you want to line up. The offer is definitely the most underappreciated and overlooked part of the mix, right? I'm sure you know the book by Alex Hormozy, The $100 Million
Oh
Offer. And I
yeah.
think a lot of people through that book became a bit more aware of what an offer actually means. Now, I don't necessarily agree with every little piece of that book, but I do agree that if you don't have the offer right, then you're just having a very hard time to sell stuff, right? And what is a good offer? A good offer is something that gets somebody closer to what they really want in their life, what they're dreaming of, right? And creating something where they trust you to solve the problems and offer you a solution to get there, right? And I'm obviously not the first one saying that. That's just basic marketing principles, right? If you have an
Right.
offer that solves a concrete problem for a concrete audience, it's a lot easier to sell because that is high value, or at least high perceived value for that kind of audience.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a big fan of that book, but I think, and Alex is a really nice guy. I met him in person very briefly. I got to talk to him and his wife. Very nice people. But it was funny when that book came out, I started seeing all these marketing agencies suddenly like doing the entire offer stack from that book. And then one of,
Right.
one of my friends, he runs a local lead gen agency, and he told me when he runs offers, all he does is gives the price and no guarantee, like none of these crazy reversals. And his prospects are like, wow, this is so different from what everyone else is telling me. They're like, guaranteeing me like 30 customers a month. Like, why aren't you doing
Yeah.
that? And you're like, well, because that's not
Yeah.
realistic. That's not the way marketing works. Who knows if this is going to work? They're like, I like that. That's realistic. So
Yeah.
ironically, him like making the
Yeah.
offer simpler, like made him stand out where he was getting customers. But yeah, I don't agree with everything in that book, but I think it's a really good basic like foundation if you don't know how to make a good offer. But let's move on to in general marketing and maybe a little bit of the affiliate space or e-commerce space. You can probably touch on all of them, but are there any techniques that you see people still using today that are pretty outdated?
Well, a lot. a lot. But
This was a dumb
I
question, of
think
course.
no, I mean, I love dumb questions. It's how you get smarter, right? I ask a lot of dumb questions. I think the main issue is that a lot of people don't really speak the right language when it comes to marketing. So let me try to explain that. And this is where a lot of agencies actually get it wrong because they're taking on the wrong kind of clients, which have offers, right, and audiences that speak a different language. And so the agency can actually not perform, right? So I'm making a case here for niche down very specific agencies who do a better job here. But anyways, so I think the main issue that a lot of people have is really getting the culture of their audience, right? And this does go back to like know your avatar and know your target audience, right? But it's a lot different if you actually do it and feel it. Is not a textbook thing, right? If I have an offer that has a very specific audience, let's say I sell something to direct to consumer e-com entrepreneurs, right? Well, you
Mhm.
can put this into an avatar sheet and like design the crap out of it. Doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is that you understand what really drives that person, how this person clicks, how this person talks, right? And the only way to really understand that is probably to do it yourself or spend a lot of time with these people. But probably you have to do that shit yourself. You probably have to own a DTC e-com company yourself, right? Or at least have been like part of one and really felt the hustle, felt the pain, have been there, right? If you sell to, I don't know, coaches, consultants, whatever, if that's your thing, or to service businesses, you want to have been in that business for a while. So you really understand what moves the needle here, right? At least that's my perspective. And then you don't have to like go back to the old school marketing strategies or like pay too much attention to the principles that we actually talked about before, because you do feel a lot of that, right? So if you then have these principles as like your guiding stars, right, that you want to have as part of your mix, but you focus on actually feeling what these people are feeling, then it's very easy to formulate an offer that fits with these people and put marketing strategies into place that also work here. Let me give you a concrete example, right? If you're attracting, there's like a big trend in, I think, all over the world, really, for offering services for like mom and pop stores and like other service businesses, like basic services industries, like plumbers or gardeners or whatever,
Mhm.
right? That's seems to be a thing in many markets right now. And I see a lot of like affiliates, for example, trying to cater to these audiences, right? And they talk about like the CPMs and the CPAs and like how to optimize that funnel. And there is this plumber, right? And it's like, dude, the only thing I really want is like have customers who are not assholes, right? And they just like, I would love to have them lined up. That's really it. What's a lead, by the way?
Yeah, what's it?
So
What's this CQL? What are you talking about? We do coding over here.
yeah,
I like what you're saying, man. I call that knowing the words of their world. Like you said, a
mm,
plumber is not going to be talking about RPMs, all this. All they care about is like, how many calls did I get this week? How many of those calls
yeah,
turned to revenue? And how easy were
yeah,
they? Like, were they all assholes or low quality or whatever, right?
yeah.
Versus a SaaS business, obviously they're going to care about all that kind of stuff. But
Of
I've had
course,
so many friends in the affiliate world space, like they've tried to sell businesses with us, and like often it's a really good business, like a DTC style store, right? But they're
right?
so good at marketing, or they're so good at like doing this intensely advanced like paid media stuff. It actually scares away buyers. Like the buyer is like, whoa, what is this day
Yeah,
parting? Like, what is all this stuff that's going on with this guy? You know, it kind of intimidates them. So yeah, knowing how to speak the right words, I say, is quite important.
absolutely.
So, with all that said, if you had to get like say like one thing, because I want to pivot into kind of what you're doing for these other brands, but in terms of what's effective today, what are you seeing as one of the more effective tactics in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, video is the most important gig here, right? Or let me start one step before that. I mean, that's that's something a lot of people have talked about, but content is king, right? Content has always been king, right? Always, long before the world of the interwebs, right? It has been
Yep.
people who understood how to communicate, right? And how to get the message out and how to produce content, be it speeches or whatever. Those were the people who were followed, right? And nowadays, it's not a lot different. It's just that for a lot of people who have spent time in the marketing world, it feels a bit weird to get on that content train, I assume. It has definitely been the case for me because, again, you are, as a marketer or as a business builder, not used to be in front of a camera, be out there talking, or at least you do that one on one, but not like on a big stages. That's for speakers, right? That's for keynote speakers, not for actual business people, definitely not for marketers, right? So this has changed a lot. Content is king, and every single entrepreneur and everybody who wants to sell anything online, be it a product, a service, an idea, a movement, whatever you want to sell, right? Meaning putting it out in the world as an offer, right? And having people convert on that offer. And yes, that can be an idea, a philosophy, whatever. But in most cases, especially for the people listening to this, it will be a product or a service. You can only profit from putting yourself out there. And I understand it takes maybe some guts. It definitely takes time. It might take energy, especially if you're an introvert. But putting yourself out there is the name of the game in 2023, has always been. It's more and more a game of you getting in front of your audience, ideally with video.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny, man. The content is king thing. I still remember way back in the day, like 2007, 2008, there was this social media agency I was trying to get a job for. I was still in the oil field back then. And
Right.
they told me SEO and content was too new. Then they were doing Facebook ads, and Facebook ads had really just kind of launched at that point. And I was like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? This has been around for like 150 years. John Deere's been doing content marketing since like the 1880s. Like they have a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
magazine dedicated to it. You know, the Sears catalog. But yeah, I always say content is king, but distribution is queen. And I think we're in this very
Sure.
interesting time where people can do distribution at a wild scale. But what you just said there, I think, is the major roadblock for a lot of these people who want to do content. And I'll give you an example of
Yeah.
what I mean. Like, so if someone sees that, like, oh, that sounds great for you to say, Phil, because you are running an agency, you're doing this B2B stuff, but I'm selling dog bowls with my e-commerce store. Like, what do you mean go speak? Like speak about like the making of the dog bowl? Like what kind of content are these people doing?
Yeah. I mean, there's basically two ways of how you could enter this. One is you follow with your passion, right? Overused word, but you basically focus on what you're interested in, right? So if you like performance marketing, maybe good to speak about performance marketing. If you're interested in dogs, right? Why don't you start with speaking about dogs, right? If you're selling, what was it, dog bowls, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there's
dog
a
bowls
lot
is
to
my
talk
go-to
about
example.
dog food, dog health, dog whatever, right? There's probably a gazillion different topics you can talk about if you're interested in those. And then, of course, there's this other side where you basically focus on whether it's a market opportunity, right? I personally prefer starting with speaking about stuff you're passionate about because naturally you will know more about it and you will speak the
Mhm.
language better because you're into that, right? If you start with a market opportunity, then it will really help you to, again, immerse yourself, right? And try to understand really the problems and the solutions and come up with topics this way. Of course, usually it's the intersection where it's best, right? There is this concept of, sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, ikigai, like a Japanese concept, where a market need meets your own interests, something that you're good at, and what people want to pay for, right? So the intersection of those. And that is true for starting a business or really anything, right? And also for content, right? So start with something that you're passionate about, that you love talking about, right? Something where your spouse goes like, oh, again. Start with that. Seriously. Seriously. Be nice to your spouse and speak it into a
And
camera.
talk don't talk to her about it. Talk about it on Instagram going forward. I
That's
like
the way
that.
to do.
I agree with you. I think there are certain examples where maybe the system might be different. I'd be curious on your thoughts on this. So, like, let's go back to that dog bowl example. So, I'm running an
Sure.
e-commerce store selling dog bowls. I'm Mr. Busy CEO, but I know I want to create content. Would you recommend me personally to do that, or should I hire someone who maybe is more charismatic on the camera to be doing this
Hmm.
as my employee? And if it's that, like, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me talk about being busy. If you're busy as a CEO, you're definitely doing something wrong, right? And I'm not saying that you wouldn't necessarily have a full calendar, right? And a lot of things to do. But if you're the busy entrepreneur or CEO, it's a matter of wrong priorities, right? And that leads me into creating content. Obviously, you can make a conscious choice whether creating content is the right focus, the right priority, or not. I would argue that in most cases is the right priority if you structure it correctly. Obviously, you don't have time to like be in front of your phone, like do stories like 5 hours each and every day. That's not what I'm talking about. But structured,
I got to be
maybe
in front of my
bulk
phone doing
creation.
5 hours of scrolling across Reddit.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a way to spend the day for sure. A lot of people do that actually.
For
This is
sure. It's sorry.
exactly why you should
Stupid
create
joke.
content
Keep going.
because Greg will watch your content 5 hours straight each and every day. You just have to produce enough shit.
I know all 500 views of these, at least 495 of them are just Greg.
Oh, that's you on my reels. Oh, thank you so much. I thought it was my mom.
Single-handedly making you go viral. But yeah, I keep going. I think with what you're saying with the structure is totally accurate, because I think most people really do believe it takes so long. But I mean, like you were mentioning to me offline, like an hour a month, you can more or less create 30 days worth of content if you do structure right. So maybe let's get a little bit into how that structure looks. Like, how do you go about doing
Sure.
this?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So I was starting my own podcast just recently, and we started recording. It's going to launch soon. And during doing that, we realized that we actually do want to do a lot more reels and short form video for ourselves as well, right? So I was diving really into like what would actually be a good structure, a good process of doing that, because I've got enough shit to do as well, right? I mean, I've been up until 2 a.m. last night working on a new project on a Sunday night. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock, I'm getting up, flying to Barcelona for a business trip. There's enough to do, right? So, what am I doing today? I have a couple calls like the one with you right now, producing content. By the way, it can be a lot of fun producing content, right? You just have to do it the right way, like with podcast. Anyways, so if you find a way to produce longer form content, for example, an interview style podcast, right? You can actually curate this content and find the bits and pieces that kind of stand out and might do well as a short video. We call
Mhm.
that process curation, right? And you can have somebody on your team that does that, not necessarily yourself. That does take a lot of time. Then you have an editor and basically do short videos out of that. And then you have a simple process of publishing it, right? These are kind of like the four steps. So basically there's four steps in that process, and the only step that really has to involve you is the actual content production, right? And you just have to choose a format that works for you. I'll give you another example, because from what we did for our own podcast, we realized that there is a need for other people to reduce the amount of time that they need to produce the content, right? And we actually, like you mentioned, we figured out a process where somebody could actually get on a phone call with me or my team for a very structured 1 hour interview. And from that, we produce 30 reels. And we basically just do one of these calls each month, right? And
Mhm.
then, as a result of the process I just shared, we have a short video for each day that can be shared on really any of the platforms right now. Needs a little bit of tweaks, of course, yes. But the video itself, the raw content that you produced within a 1 hour call, can be shared, and you have that visibility and can build that authority that you can really only build nowadays with social media. It's the best way.
So you've been doing this for a while, and I'm sure you've seen other people use shorts. Like, I've not used shorts really at all myself. Like, so the vast majority of our marketing, as you know, is SEO, is coming from Google.
Right.
A little bit on the podcast. So this podcast is less of a traffic generator for us, more of like a trust builder, right? Like, people get to hear our voice, get to be more intimate
Right.
with us. I'm in their ear type of thing. But now we're doing YouTube, and we've had like middling success with that. But we are starting with shorts. But at least on YouTube. What has been your experience by using this micro video content? Like, what are you seeing in the space? Like, one, is it actually converting people to customers? I think that's the thing most people want to know about. And
Right.
two, what kind of content is that? Like, what are they doing inside of these shorts?
Yeah. I mean, the important thing is to understand what the style is that you want to go with, right? And a lot of people, when they think about video shorts, they think TikTok right away
Hmm.
or Instagram Reels, right? And obviously on TikTok, there's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think is the right fit for you for a good reason, right? All the dances, I don't know, I think they got kind of out of fashion, or at least I don't have them in my bubble anymore. That's not what I'm talking about. So what we're doing is like talking heads, right? Just faces, conversations, right? And you see those as well, right? We mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk. He does that quite a lot. Or a lot of the more popular influencers, they have like interview formats, right? They're just well edited, and this is what they're
Hmm.
pushing out, right? Coming back to your question about like what's the value, what are you actually getting from that? So the biggest thing you can build with short videos is actually influence, and I'm not speaking about like being an influencer like what we all know from like people doing, I don't know, makeup or apparel or travel or whatever it is. That's very different. And the interesting thing is that a lot of these influencers, as we've got to know them, the majority of them, they're actually struggling. They're actually not making a lot of money. They're actually
Hmm.
spending a lot of money and time, of course, for producing these kinds of videos, right? Depending on what they're selling or what's their content, but specifically when they do travel or like expensive shit, right? They are using all their money for that, a lot of time too, and they don't really have a source of revenue. They're not making any money from that. This is not what I'm talking about. These people are into a lot of followers, right? And trying to monetize that large audience then through CPMs, through ads, right? Specifically on YouTube or wherever. That's a different game. That's not what is of interest to an entrepreneur or a marketer. What you want to do is go a different track that is all about thought leadership. And the great thing about that is it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier and it's a lot more profitable. So, what you do is you do quite simple videos where you show your expertise, where you provide value with the stuff that you're teaching, the stuff that you're sharing, like you do with your podcast, right? And by doing this, and of course, you want to have a simple process so it doesn't take too much of effort to you, right? And with that, you get in front of people and you build your bubble. So now let me share another secret with you here. To your bubble, you are as influential and as important, or maybe even more, than a lot of the big ass influencers. So let's take Gary Vaynerchuk. I love Gary, right? He's in my feed like at least twice a day, right? Let's say Instagram, for example, right? But also, I have a lot of friends who are not famous at all, right? And they're also in my feed 2 times a day. So, depending on what they say, they might be a lot more important to me with their content than Gary. They appear pretty much the same amount of time. So, it only matters what they're actually saying and how valuable they are. So, of course, Gary has millions of an audience, and these people might just have like 2,000, 3,000, whatever, a few hundred, a few thousand people in their following. But to those people in their following, they become super, super important. They become a thought leader, right? I have a guy who talks about real estate investing, right? A German dude in German, small following. If I want to know about real estate investing, he's the guy I got to talk to because he's in my feed all the time. I know he knows his shit, right? So I won't speak to Gary Vaynerchuk or a big ass real estate influencer in the US. I got to talk to this guy because he speaks my language, not just German, but really like the stuff I'm interested in. So, long story short, the big opportunity in short video is for entrepreneurs, for marketers to provide value, to provide expertise, just put them into short snippets and put them out on the platforms that you know about, right? Facebook, actually, not to be underestimated. Instagram, TikTok, of course, and Instagram is left, right? So these are the ones that you want to do, right? And you push that out and you're going to build your audience. There's a lot of other benefits of using reels and using these short form videos, but that's the biggest one. You're building your bubble and your bubble will grow over time. But no matter how big it is, the people who are in the bubble, you become an authority for these people. And now, finally, to answer your question, with that authority, with that influence, you can do a lot of things. If you want to sell, you sell because you've so much trust that you can sell a lot of things that otherwise wouldn't be possible organically, with ads, with emails, whatever. It works a lot better.
Yeah. So on the point of the small amount of followers, like this podcast doesn't get a ton of downloads. It's like no Gary Vaynerchuk podcast or anything like that, but people listen to it and it has more
Yeah,
influence, I'd say, than one of the bigger podcasts. Like at least after my friends get off the podcast, if they have a service or whatever, they often tell me they get a nice bump. So hopefully you'll get a nice bump as well, Phil. But there is something to be said about these small channels, like our YouTube channel on average gets between 100 to 300 views per video, like long form video. Not a lot,
yeah,
very low, but that's
yeah.
still way higher than anyone else in our industry. Like there's a guy that he publishes religiously on YouTube about the same, like he's a competitor of mine, and he gets like 2 views a video. So like we're
Oh, that
beating
hurt.
him on that front. Yeah. But even with our low amount of views, we've made probably $2-3 million in revenue over the years on this organic content. So like that's the thing I think a lot of people trick themselves in. They think that,
Yeah,
oh, I need to be like this ESPN or Alex Ramosi or whatever. Like you really don't. You can be relatively unknown and be making 7 figures a year with your business by just doing content. Like I literally have a
yeah,
blog post that I wrote 7 years ago that still drives revenue today. I haven't looked at it in years. So like, yeah,
awesome.
I think people just kind of trick themselves with the content stuff, thinking like this won't work or whatever. But let's go into the actual anatomy of what makes a good short, because this is something I
Sure.
struggle with. I'm long winded. I'm very thorough when I'm explaining something. And I do often feel limited in that 30 to 60 second
Yeah.
medium that has now become kind of like the mainstay medium on all this. And I don't really know how to navigate that. So, like, how do you shrink that value down to such a small time capsule?
I think that's a very, very important point that you're mentioning here. The only thing that you really have to understand is that you can really only do one idea or one concept per short. That's really it. Then again, there is a couple different formats you can use. Like a lot of the stuff that you see online that works quite well are lists, right? So it's like the top 3 things you have to do to achieve this and that, right? That could be
Mhm.
cool. But then, of course, you can just briefly, very briefly mention the 3 different things, right? So I don't know. If I was to talk about the top 3 things to grow a beard like Greg Elfrink, right? Then I could
Don't do
basically,
it.
I just,
Don't do it.
ah, all right, don't want any competition here. Okay. All right. So anyway, that's
I'm
pretty
just trying
much
to save
what do you want
themselves
to
from
do?
looking like a homeless man.
I think it's cool. You got your
Oh,
style. That's awesome. Oh, that's good.
thank you, Phil. I appreciate that. But yeah, so one concept or a list that makes sense to me because you only have a certain amount of time. But so like YouTube is kind of the long form video kind of goes like hook, open loop. Like I'm going to say something later in the video to keep you around longer, and then there's the meat of the video, and then you eventually get to the open hook and you close it, but then you end the video almost abruptly to get them to start binging more and more. I mean, is there
Right.
a certain anatomy like that with these shorts, or do you include like a CTA at the end? Like, what's the actual mechanics of this?
Yeah, it depends a little bit on the platform, but I'll give you what is true for each platform, right? It actually
Okay.
follows a quite similar structure to long form content. So, obviously, in the beginning, the most important part is the hook. And that is true no matter if you do organic content, short form organic content, or short form ads, right? And we can speak about the ads kind of things as well if you want. Let's focus on organic first, right? The hook, in any case, is the most important thing, right? So, there's a lot of different ways to do a hook. The one thing that it has to do is obviously stop somebody who is like mindlessly scrolling through the feed, right? And this is the state that most people are in. You have to imagine that people are not waiting for your content, right? They're, for whatever reason, just in front of the screen and caught in the matrix, right? That's just the reality, if you like it or not. So the best thing you can do is give them a good reason to watch, right? Get them out of that numbless state and provide value to them, right? And yes, sell something to them if it's a right fit. But first, you have to grab their attention, right? You know the old AIDA formula, right? The first part is attention, right? They have to stop and give you that attention. So there's a couple of ways of doing that. Usually it combines visual effects and wording that taps into something that is a pain point for that audience, right? So, say, just taking a random one that we did the other day that speaks about hustle or passion. right? A lot of entrepreneurs, they're all like stuck in like hustling mode and it's a little bit too much and they're looking for more passionate work. So that's something that did decently well, right? Or for an entrepreneur, what might be important is like the right business idea, the right audience, and so forth. And you just mentioned that at the very beginning, ideally in a way that stands out, that is kind of surprising, is kind of weird, right? And this just helps people to stop and say, oh, what is that? And that's all you want to do with your hook, really, right? The way that we do it is we try to have like an open line that is like 1-2 seconds, very brief, and addresses something that people should be curious about. And we also use like text overlay boxes. They can come in all different forms and shapes, but that works well for like interview kind of style. If you are more creative, there's a ton of ways of how you can do it. When you're basically a talking head, it boils down to that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And do you do the same thing that you do with, a long form video where you're trying to end the short almost abruptly to try to get them to just binge watch all your stuff? Or does it, I imagine it doesn't work the same way on YouTube as it does on like Instagram and TikTok with that. So how do you get them deeper into your channel or your profile once you do get them on like a TikTok or Instagram reel? Because I think
Yeah.
after you swipe up, they'll just go to a different person's reel, right? So how do you get that person to go deeper with you?
Yeah, one hack that not a lot of people know about is that the algorithm typically, and that's across platforms, the algorithm looks for how many times a person actually watched a video and takes this as a proxy of interest in that content. So this means that, as you mentioned, you want to curate the video and edit it in a way that the person watches the same video, ideally a couple of times, right? One way of doing that is looping the content, right? Which is a bit hard to do, right? But you want to end the video in a way that it directly feeds into the start again, right? And if it replays, right, depends on the platform, then you sometimes have people just watching the same video 2-3 times without realizing, right? It happens to me all the time. Like, do it. That was smart. But then, of
I've
course,
seen that with memes that get me in an endless loop. Like, wait a second, this is
exactly
just
like,
repeated over and over
what have I done the last 5 minutes? Anyways,
again.
so that's one way. But then also, like, you see a lot of, especially on TikTok, but also like Instagram, well, actually across platforms, you see like people giving tips, right? Actually providing value, but doing it very, very fast paced, right? In general, that's a good thing to have stuff fast paced, right? Depending on what's the type of content. But that's one thing you can do. You can have like, these are like the 5 things for blah, blah, blah. And you have doom, 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 5 things, right? Ideally, you don't even talk about them, but they're just visually displayed, and then it moves on to something else. And if people are interested, and those are the people you want anyways, right? They will likely rewatch it 1 or 2 times to understand what were these points, right? So these are a couple of tricks. But let me mention here that it's not really about tricks. What short video content is really about is the value that you're providing, right? The stuff that you're teaching, the stuff that you're putting out there, and how consistent you actually do that. It's so much more important. There's a lot of different strategies, but again, we're speaking having entrepreneurs, marketers, people who are actually running a business. We have those people in mind, right? So you don't have time to be creative 10 hours a day and work on different content strategies. You need something that you can do every day or do in bulk once a month, and then you have content for each and every day. And so you have to keep it kind of simple and kind of have to use the same tricks, right? Or the same tactics for each and every video. And for that, really, it's just so important to, in the beginning, address something that is interesting and kind of surprising to your audience, right? And then just provide value. Coming back to the strategy that I shared about longer form video, a hook for short form video is typically 2, 3, 4 seconds, right? It's hard to do something below 2 seconds. It's possible. It's a bit hard with a talking head specifically. Then you have like the main piece where you give advice, where you share your perspective. This is the best way of doing things, right? Sharing a unique perspective on things, right? You do that for anything between 5, 10-ish seconds up to like maybe 40 seconds. We try to keep it at like around 20. So the whole video stays below 30 seconds. And then you asked about a call to action. Yes, you can do that. But typically, I wouldn't ask for people to go somewhere or purchase something or any action like that, because that would lead to people leaving the platform, which obviously the social platform doesn't want, right? So you can't expect a
Right.
drop in your performance for the videos that you do afterwards. If you have something that you just want to push out, sure, do it. But in general, it's good practice to actually have a very soft call to action, right? Rather, you put the call to action into the comments, right, or the headline, right? Or you find a different way of selling to these people by email, by retargeting ads, and so forth.
When you're building up these platforms with these audiences, I've never done this. I imagine you should be able to do it, but say, we grow our Empire Flippers Instagram Reels or TikTok or whatever. Are there actual functions in the advertising where we can bring those people who are following that account and then we like promote a TikTok to those people who are following our TikTok account? And from that ad is where we're selling, but they're already in it from the organic perspective. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, again, it depends a little bit on the platform you're operating on, right? But I don't know, take Instagram, Facebook, so the Meta platform, for example. Yeah, sure. You can just create audiences from those people who engaged with different kinds of videos, right? You just save those audiences, and then you can promote to exactly those audiences, or you can create lookalike audiences of people who are similar to those and so forth. There's a lot of things you can do with that. But one thing you want to do for sure is actually retarget to people who are interested in your content, who are following you, who are watching stuff. Yeah, absolutely. It's often your most profitable audience. So it makes a lot of sense to build up a following organically and then use ads to promote specific offers to those people.
That makes sense. Yeah. So it sounds like so back to the organic side. If you are running a organic video, it does well, let's say naturally it does well, or maybe it doesn't do well naturally. Is there anytime you would run ads specifically to the content itself? Like you have no intention of selling, just trying to grow the audience. Like, do you run ads like that at all?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it really depends on what's your goal, right? In general, and I guess it was clear from what I said before that you don't necessarily want a big audience the same way you don't really aim at going viral, right? Aiming at going viral is for entrepreneurs again, right? Not for content creators who do that full time, right? But for entrepreneurs, aiming at going viral is a stupid strategy because if you aim at going viral, you're spending too much time and energy on bullshit, on proxy metrics, on something that doesn't necessarily bring you any further business, right? It's not what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's the wrong priority. What was your question?
I was asking if you'd ever use, I think we have a little bit of a technical delay here too, so apologies. But I was asking, do you ever run an ad to boost your organic following? Like maybe you have a TikTok
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is going well and you want to push
yeah,
it further, or Instagram Reel, or maybe it's
yeah.
not going well,
Oh
but
yeah.
you think that if it got more views, it would resonate. And so you use some ads to kind of like jumpstart it, is basically what I'm asking.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a strategy you can use. So what I was pointing out before is that you can obviously boost your ads to increase your following, right? But there's also a lot of different options. So we do most of our stuff on the Meta platform, so Instagram and Facebook, right? And one of the things you can do is you can use an organic piece of content, right? And promote it with the goal of getting direct messages, for example. And there's a lot of great use cases for that. So you could have, it's almost like a UGC style ad with a founder story or something like that, right? That you could use. So you share something and you ask Facebook or Meta, right, to deliver you people who inbox you about a certain subject. So in that piece of content, you could say something like, I've launched this and that, right? If you want a free copy or you want a trial or you want to speak with me about that, whatever is your message, right? You could do that and it would go to the audience that you selected. For example, you can retarget the audience who has already watched your stuff previously, or you can select another one. And then those people will have an option to directly message you on Instagram, right? There's also other options that you can use. Each of those are definitely worth a try. They typically work with very low budgets. You can try that out very easily, right? That's a great thing. As long as you stay on the platform, advertising for a good reason typically is cheaper. Once you send people outside and you actually want to sell something, then traffic becomes more expensive.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we're coming close to the end of the podcast, but I want to ask you two main questions before we move into more of the rapid fire section. So you mentioned UGC content, user generated content. And I think this is a very interesting strategy of getting like your audience to basically make the content. I don't know if this is true or not, but it does feel like it works better in B2C environments than B2B. But talk to me about how can brands do this? Like how can they encourage their own customers, their own audience to create this UGC so they can actually use it for their own brand? Like, is there a strategy to get the audience motivated, I guess?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, there's basically two strategies that you can use here, right? One is you use actual customers of your product and service. The other one is you don't. Let's dive into the first one first. So, what you can do is you can basically incentivize. Well, first of all, you can just ask people to do that, and your raving fans, people who really enjoy you, they would just give you a testimonial. That's cool, right? And that's probably the best ones you can get, anyways. Secondly, you can actually incentivize people to produce content, right? So you can send them as a thank you send them like a discount or whatever it is that you want to give them, or a goodie, a freebie, whatever, for providing an honest, and that's important, an honest review about your service. You're then free to use that or not, right? Depending on how positive it is or not, right?
I really promote this ad of this 1-star review. That actually could work if
This
you
is
do it, if you
how
frame it
shit.
the right way where
Oh,
it's funny.
I think it would. I think it would. Yeah, you can all frame it as like you're like the honest, transparent brand, and you really
We're
sucked at
terrible.
this
Buy our
one.
product.
Yeah, yeah. We're really terrible in this one regard. Oh, actually, that would be a fantastic angle. You could say something like, see, we constantly get 1-star reviews on this and that aspect because actually, that's not what we're about. We're about this and that. And then you can like push those 5-star
Yeah.
reviews about something that is contradicting. Anyways, that would be interesting. Thanks for that. I think we'll test this. So,
I feel
but yeah,
sorry for your
so this is
clients. So
basically
apologies in advance.
I think that's cool. My clients love me. If they don't love me, I fire them. So it's all good. No, seriously. The one way is to actually ask clients, and then obviously it's a bit of a challenge sometimes to use that because it's not in the format that you expect and so forth, but it can work very, very well, right? And you can use obviously just screenshots of what people are writing, like testimonials that they put wherever, right? Really great if they also send videos, a lot harder to get though. The second way that is a lot more scalable and manageable is actually creating professional UGCs where you work with actors. And a lot of the stuff that you see online is not people who have actually purchased your stuff. They're actors, right? Now, the important thing here is you still want an honest review. You still want these people to produce something that is super, super authentic and real, right? So, the way you do that is typically you ship them your product, right? Or if it's a software, you show them like, I don't know, your app or whatever it is, right? And you give them a couple of pointers, what they should dive into, and then they record that. And then depending on who you work with, they edit it or you have to edit it in house and prepare it for pushing it online. But no matter what route you choose, UGCs is definitely the way to go if you're running any ads online nowadays. I mean, there's a lot of stats about that, but in general, you can expect your traffic to be maybe a fourth in terms of cost, right? So CPMs are a lot lower, engagement rates are like, I think 4 or 5 times higher in general, right?
Mm.
And you just build up a lot of trust. So UGCs get you better buyers at cheaper cost in general.
That makes sense. I've heard of the paid actor route. And I mean, it's no different than just like reaching out to an influencer to do a review as long as the actor is doing an honest review, right? Like, yeah, maybe
Yeah.
they're an actor, but they're still doing an authentic review of the product. So I see no issue with that. Cool. So the other question I had for you, and this could be a whole can of worms in of itself, but I have to bring it up, and that's the nature of AI with what's going on. So how are you using AI, or maybe you're not using AI? But what's your thoughts on this with content generation?
Well, obviously, AI is changing the game completely, but a lot of people talk about AI that have not actually really tested it or made it
Yeah.
work for their own businesses, right? So, like, AI, it's the big thing. Everybody should use it. Yes, I agree. But how, right? Where does it fit? So,
Value, great value.
absolutely, right? So we definitely use AI in different ways. I mean, your fucking iPhone is full of AI, right? So everybody uses AI anyways, right? But if we speak concretely about content creation and the role of AI, honestly, we're not where we would love to be, not at all. So there's a couple interesting use cases, a lot of things that we play with, but mostly it's all text based, right? For
Yeah.
text is awesome. So we definitely use ChatGPT and a couple other programs to help us structure content, right? To help us summarize content, to give us talking points like prompts for our human brain. So that is great for interview questions, stuff like this. Definitely for all of that, you can use AI and it speeds up the process tremendously. When it comes to video, not there yet. We tested, I think, 30 or 40 different programs, right? A lot of them have been gone again since we tested them like maybe a couple of weeks ago. So that happens too. Not a big help if you're trying to build a business around that. I honestly thought so. We launched this service for Reels and UGCs, right? And I was thinking, oh, that's amazing. We just put that up with like on an AI platform and it will all be magically created for us. And let me tell you that like 90%, 95% of it is just crap. It's just, it doesn't understand the essence of the message. It doesn't understand how to put it together. It doesn't even get the editing right yet. I'm pretty sure this will change. For now, I would say that for like text, we use it a lot. We wouldn't want to do without AI anymore. For video, is like 10% maybe, and most of it is manual at this point.
Yeah, I could see that with video. So in the SEO world, like some of my friends who are copywriters hate it when I say this, which I get because I started marketing as a writer. But like AI is already good enough to replace like low level to intermediate writers in the SEO space. Like for majority of SEO content out there is already good enough, right? You don't need Ernest Hemingway talking to you about like the qualities of this microwave. It's okay to be a little bit not that good of a writer to write about a microwave. But I can see that with the video stuff. I am curious to see how things go. I feel like with AI, it'll be probably like the repurposing stuff will probably be the first one where they like get it right, I would think. But maybe not. I've hired many repurposing agencies. I mean, you and I were about to do some work. So there's a plug for Phil. If anyone's out there thinking about using Phil, I'll be using Phil shortly. But I've used other repurposing agencies and they have not been good. So they almost think the AI might already be better than those guys. But yeah, I'm curious to see what happens. Like I was exploring 11 Labs for voices, and my buddies
Yeah.
have deepfaked me already, where they just send me messages to hang out in my own voice, which I think is quite funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you can match that with a living avatar of yourself, then you can pretty much just use like ChatGPT to write your script of your own, like doing the actions or whatever. But yeah, I agree. I don't think we're there on the video
Definitely.
front.
I mean, obviously, this is interesting and scary, right? And
Not scary. Deep fake Greg isn't scared at all.
oh no, no, no. Why should why? Well, the real one is scary already. I'm not sure about the deepfake one, but well, let's not go there either. But for now, for now, at least when it comes to the stuff that really matters to entrepreneurs, right, and marketers, the stuff that really matters is you being authentic when it is about your organic reels, right? You being authentic, you being you, and this cannot yet be replaced by AI. Again, this most likely will change, but it will take a lot of development on the AI side to understand the craziness of a Greg Elfrink, right? And everything that he's hiding in his brain and wherever else. So that will take some time. And the same is true for UGCs, right? So I've not seen a single AI produced video ad be successful. Text, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Video, not yet.
There's this one guy on YouTube. I'm forgetting his name. I watched a few of his videos. He's one of the only people with an AI voice, and it's clearly an AI voice, but it
Yeah.
works because it's hilarious because he's making fun of AI like throughout, like his whole channel is just making fun of AI about like, oh, everyone $300 a day with ChatGPT. Let's try out, but it's like this extreme robot voice, and the way he does it
Yeah.
all is like absolutely hilarious. So it just like it works, but other than this
That's awesome.
one extreme specific edge case, I agree with you. It's not usually
Try
a good
try
move.
selling that microwave with an AI generated voice. People will be scared shitless of that microwave coming to life and eating them while they're sleeping.
Hey, that's the marketing pitch. Our microwave will literally give you nightmares if you don't buy it right now.
Or
That's a
maybe our
promise.
microwave is the only non-AI enabled one, so you can sleep tight without being scared.
AI enabled dog bowls. That's the next innovative product. But let's
Ah,
move.
you just gave me an idea.
Oh my God, perfect. All right, man. So we're in the rapid fire section. I have three questions. You have three answers. Give it to me as quickly as possible. Are you ready?
Short answers. Wow. Yeah, I'm ready.
I like your rapid fire response there. Solid. Perfect. All right. First question. First question. What are the best hidden growth opportunities in your view in the marketing world today?
I definitely have to say organic video. That's really what you want to go after. And you want to combine that with ads actually pushing the stuff that works organically.
Gotcha.
That
And
will be number one. You want more than one answer? Because I got
no,
more.
no,
Or just one?
one answer only in the rapid fire section.
Shit.
That's your final answer. They'll have to contact you for the other parts of the answer. What tools or resources would you recommend to help people with their repurposing of user generated content or their own content if they want to do some thought leadership stuff like what you're saying?
So a couple of things that you need to have. The first one is actually not a tool. The first one is a person to help you understand what of that content is actually relevant, so you can curate that. Number two is you obviously need an editing program. We use Descript. It's cool because you can basically just edit the text and it will cut the video alongside it. The third one is that you can use a publishing tool. Obviously, is a lot out there. It just helps you publish your content on a lot of different platforms, and you want to do that in a way that you create omnipresence, right? So different short form videos on different platforms on any given day. The last one I want to give is if you want to push that out as ads for additional traction. And we spoke about AI. I would recommend Magix. I'm biased, found as a friend. They're great. And they basically run your media buying for you.
I would love to interview that guy, by the way. I'm very keen on that software. I haven't checked it out fully, but I'm very interested in it. But what's the agency that you're starting that is doing the repurposing stuff? What's it called?
We're calling it Reels.
Reels. RAALS, right?
Reels. Reals. Yeah. You can find it
Is it
at
reels.com?
wearereels.com. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a sweet domain.
Wearereels.com. I tried reels.com. It's weird. It's not available.
Well, I would also recommend that as a resource for the audience, obviously. That's why I put it up there. So a shameless plug from me. All right, final question, my friend. In your 20 plus years of experience in the digital marketing world, what has been your funniest moment in working in the online marketing industry?
Some of my funniest moments have been with you talking random shit about moose in Alaska wearing latex. I'll stop here.
Whoa, you're the one who brought up the Bulgarians first. I was just one upping you with the moose. If anyone wants to know what that is, you'll have to buy Phil's in my course. It's only going to set you back $6,000, but we're happy to tell you the meaning behind that once you make us revenue.
It's worth a lot more. It's worth a lot more. The perceived value is through the roof.
The
I'm telling you.
perceived value. There's definitely a perceived something's being perceived here. I'm not sure if it's value.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
man. I mean, I always enjoy talking to you. You've been one of the most fun people I've met in the whole affiliate world space. So it's a pleasure to finally have you on, man. If someone wanted to reach out to you and maybe have their own funny moments with you, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, actually, if they if they check out we are reals reals.com, you'll find me there. And yeah, you'll also find me on the interwebs, different socials. So just hit me up on Instagram or wherever. And happy to speak. Let's figure out, yeah, if we can do something together. Be it fun or not, we'll see.
Hopefully not fun. Phil does not like fun experiences, let me tell you. But yeah, man,
Oh
thanks for
no,
coming on.
I
Really
hate
appreciate
life
it.
in general.
There we go. That's the perfect
Thank you
way to
very
end this
much.
podcast. On a real downer. I love this guy. He hates himself. I'm definitely hiring him.
Yeah, I hate life, but I love Greg. All right, thank you. Peace out.
That's all you need. Cool, man. Good talking. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it got you inspired at all the different things that are happening in this industry. And of course, if you just want to buy a highly profitable business, you can always go to empireflippers.com/marketplace, or maybe you want to make an exit of your highly profitable business, and you could go to empireflippers.com/sell your site. I've been your host, Greg. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review, give us a like, a follow, share it across social media. Talk to you all soon. See you on the next episode.